All right, Rosie, we're back. Some technical difficulties, but we work our way through it. We're still not actually at game day of game one, so you know what? I guess this could still technically be preseason for us as well, working out the kinks. But back at it, I guess what we were just saying ahead of time or ahead of the drop off there was just you know we're in a spot where it feels like things could be a little bit different with this group, with the coaching staff. You get a fresh voice, fresh set of eyes, and it can kind of just allow everyone to breathe a little bit. Like there's not that constant pressure of the coaching staff from before, just looking at it and being like, how are we going to fix this? They're feeling the pressure of it. The players in the room feeling like they're going through the same goddamn video sessions every single time, going over and over. So it does feel a little bit more. Even I, as a fan, honestly, feel a little bit more refreshed. Like this felt like the first time I watched a preseason. I'm not going to sit here and say it was like exhilarating, but it was like, oh, like I don't, I just kind of was enjoying the experience, enjoying the 6 games we got to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, considering if you go back to losing in 7 to Boston with like the injuries and the weird shit that happened in the first round, and everyone's just like, this is so Leafy, to think that no, we're gonna run her back and sign everybody up, and it would be like you wouldn't have that feeling. You would think that this would be nauseating, but the coaching change can do that for not just the team, but for the fan base as well. Of okay, let's see what we have going here. And I mean, you can look at the numbers or the PP percentage or whatever in the preseason, and take that with a grain of salt, obviously. But I'm excited to see how they react, to see what their character is, to see what happens when they get scored on to go down one with 8 minutes left in the third, to see how they react, to see how they hold on to a 2-goal lead in the third period. To see that those like character things, those intangibles that make a good team. And I'm not expecting them all to be there right from the drop of the puck, but are they addressing that? Do they look like they have that killer instinct? Do they look like they have that camaraderie where they band together and dig deep and actually like finish a team or come back? Or how do they answer to adversity? All those things that are team oriented. I want to see how this group does it, and that's coaching to me. That's character, that's identity, that's all those things that we've been talking about. And I think Chief understands what that needs to look like. And the way he goes about his business and the way he's just very straightforward, he's not throwing shade or being, playing mind games or dicking with guys here and there and trying to poke and prod this guy. And like, it's none of that. It's just, these are the expectations, boys. Let's go do it together. We all know how it looks. We all know how it feels. Now let's figure it out starting now. Boom. And it's just, I've been coached by him. I know that's how he is. He's very honest and open and upfront. And you can't argue with Chief because he doesn't say anything that is really argumentative. It's just like, yeah, that makes sense. No, I get that. Yeah, that's true. And it's kind of not that Keefe wasn't that, but it's just refreshing to have that. And I mean, my fingers are crossed. I'm hoping that it's what this group needs to kind of get over that hump, because for whatever reason, it's just they come up short. They don't have that character. They don't have that bond and that camaraderie. And they're not just a one team linked arms just barreling down the highway. It's just a bunch of broken shit left and right. And sometimes, they have enough talent to pull it off and we clap and look, but it wasn't there. They don't have that we're going deep this year feeling, and we'll see how this group gets together and comes off. And it'll take a few weeks to kind of get an idea of where they're at, but I'm excited for that process and to see what it looks, and I have high hopes for it.
Well, we are 2 days away from the first game of the 2024-2025 regular season. Back at it here. Get the stream back going right here on the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. If you are watching right now and you're not subscribed to the channel, not sure what you're doing, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Like the stream here today. Rosie, one of the things that I noticed here in the preseason as well, it's one thing that has been a more comforting feeling going into this year than it's been, I feel like, the last few seasons, is the goalie situation. How many times like did you and Nick go into last year talking about, oh, well, can we trust Samsonov? What's Matt Murray going to do? Is he going to play? Is Martin Jones going to be on the roster? Like, how many games is that guy going to play? And No disrespect to those guys, but that's a nightmare to have to sit there and have that debate over and over and over again about how things were going to play out amongst those three guys. And, it's not like it's ever been much more comfortable than that in previous seasons. Go back, Samsonov, Campbell, Freddie Anderson. Yeah, you get a really good goaltender in there at some point, but then who's the backup? How are they going to play in their games? Michael Hutchison coming in, like, those were not the ideal solutions to have backing up guys or to lead you through 55, 60 games in your regular season. This is the first time I've kind of felt like the only real concern here is injury, which I'm just not really even interested in diving into here today, but that's the one. And then if that happens, I think we both still feel comfortable in the other guy. With the tandem that we've got, you see Joseph Woll plays the first half of the first game. We don't see him since. Panic starts to creep into Leafs fans. Then he plays the full 60 of the game the other night, 18 saves on 20 shots. But it's more than just the saves and the stats. It was how he looked. Looked calm, comfortable, poised, ready to go. And there was even conversation about, hey, could Stolar start game one? And it wasn't because there was a controversy here in Toronto. It's because, holy shit, that guy looks good. I, I feel like this is the best setup this Leafs team has been from a goaltending situation in a while.
Yeah, I think the potential's there. I don't play the injury game. I there's nothing you can do about sports when it comes to injuries. You can't plan for them. You can't rely on them. You have to deal with them. It happens to everybody, every team. So that's not really even on my mind. It's how are these guys going to ham and egg it? How are they going to split it? What's the relationship like? I could see it being like a coin toss. Like, we don't care who plays tonight. Like, either or, like, it doesn't matter because I think they're both similar and, you know, just the way they look they're like Stoley's massive, but he's usually pretty I love Joseph Woll. I think he's the number one guy. I think that when you watch him, he is so poised and he just looks so confident in what he's doing. Like, he just always looks in control. And I think that this is going to be his breakout season for being the number one guy. He's going to share it a lot with Stoley, and rightfully so. But it's going to be, his entry officially into the NHL. I think before it was toe dipping in the water, up and down, and is he this or who's that? And then he's hurt, and it's kind of all over the place. And now I think this is his official entrance to the NHL of here I am. And I think that, yeah, if he does stay healthy, but having that good, support system with Stoley, I could see him really, like, really being the kind of people are talking about him that aren't even involved in the Maple Leafs at all. Like, that guy's, have you seen his numbers? He's so consistent. He's poised. He's got the head for it. He doesn't get rattled, win, loss, or draw. He kind of has the same mentality. He goes through his process. I mean, everything I've heard going back a couple of years from people that know him from like St. Louis and him up and coming through the ranks have said this guy was something to look out for and be on people's radar for quite a while now, just because of his maturity. He's just like a consummate professional. I think he's built to play in a market like Toronto. And, again, we don't know what's going to happen, but I am excited to see what this guy does. And yeah, backed up by Stoley as well. He looks fantastic. He's massive. He's capable, and he's got the experience behind him of, again, I think anytime you're part of that Florida Panthers franchise the last couple of years, that's just a massive, massive positive thing for your experience level and your understanding of how it's supposed to look.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about the difference in temperature of goal when it comes to the goalies here in Toronto. I saw a tweet go out the other day, and it was saying who went on waivers. There was two players from Toronto who went down on waivers. They got to clear through to get to the Marlies. Marshall Rafai, who we'll get to in a second, and Matt Murray. And if you read the comments, there were Leafs fans legitimately concerned this guy was going to get stolen off of waivers, Rosie. A year ago today, people would have been begging for him to be gone and taken away from the Leafs. And people in Toronto are like, "Don't take this guy. He looks good in camp." Like, okay, let's pump brakes here for a second. We don't need to be panicking about losing that guy. But I think people are finally looking, being like, wow, we feel comfortable with our goalie situation. We don't want to lose any of them. So it's just a different mindset and mentality going into the season about the two guys in net. And speaking of guys going down on waivers, we watch some of these guys have to get moved down so you can open up spots, roster spots, salary, whatever it may be. We sign these 2 PTO contracts, Pacioretty and Lorentz here to get those done. Well, there has to be corresponding moves. See a bunch of guys go to IR, season opening IR, etc. Urban Droid here with a super chat. He said, "Thanks, boys, for doing this right now. All the radio guys want to talk about at the moment is the NFL. Cup of coffee for you both. Can you please touch on Rafai, got on how Rafai got put on waivers and will he get claimed?" I think that this is more of a bigger picture conversation, right? When you look at the defense here in Toronto and what we've got right now, we're talking about Myers, Timmins, Liljegren, Hawkenpaw fighting for that one single spot. Outside of that, you're looking at Riley, Tanev, they're locked in. Ekman Larson, McCabe, Benoit, locked into this lineup based on their play in previous years and based on their play so far here in camp. It's really been that 6D spot. It's going to be a rotation of guys, but as far as Rafai, it just feels like he's the odd man out, got the least amount of trust from Berube. Potentially, they feel like he's going to be the one who's going to have the best shot at clearing waivers and getting down to the Marlies. I just want to know where you're at here about that 6D spot, because I'm not really a fan of Liljegren being in there full time. I don't really think it fits with the salary that he makes and the struggles that he's had so far in the preseason, the lack of trust Berube has in him. Hawkenpaw can't fit into there. Timmins, I mean, I'm still not the biggest fan of Connor Timmins, of the work that he's put in, or the body of work that he's displayed here so far throughout the preseason. I don't think it's like that much better than Timothy Liljegren, but do you have concerns when it comes to the bottom end of this D and how they kind of sort that out, how they fix all of this and maybe shore it up a little bit?
Well, to be honest, I'm waiting for Hockenpot to get ready. I think he kind of rounds out that back end. And yeah, you look at that setup, and the sixth defenseman doesn't look like the hottest ticket in town. And yeah, Liljegren, there's just no one that you're just like, boom, that's the guy. That's the guy. I'm kind of hoping that Hockenpot can come in there and be that trustworthy, solid, experienced guy. We're talking about Rafai here with 2 games of NHL experience, and do we lose him on waiver and all that stuff? It's like, I mean, I don't think that's the end all be all thing we should be worried about. But on the other side of the coin, when you look like Tanev and like guys pick on OEL and stuff, but he's pretty high pedigree player, knows how to play in this league, and if he plays simple and just does what he needs to do out there with the minutes that he's going to eat, I think that he can move the puck into these forwards' hands, and I think everyone's going to be kind of inspired to have a mindset that's of a certain way, thanks to Craig Berube. And yeah, I just think on the other side of the coin, this D looks pretty solid, and we're only picking one specific spot to kind of talk about. Everything else looks fairly short up. So I'm more positive about the back end. I don't know. You can nitpick until you're blue in the face, and I go through other people's rosters. You think everyone's got this solidified stud that you're absolutely tickled pink about in every single position that there is on a roster. Nobody has that. It's too hard to get. You can't keep it under the salary cap if you're going that direction. There's going to be guys like that, and ultimately you need guys to step up. You need one of these guys that we're talking about to step up and elevate their game and take the next step in their career, where everyone's like, holy shit, has he ever looked solid tonight? And I'm kind of hoping that's Hockenpah. If he can get healthy and step in there, I still don't think that the D's finished until we get to see what that guy looks like.
Yeah, and you see the tweet that comes out from Mark Masters here this morning. He puts out the list of practice lines in practice. You got, obviously, as producer Vic had put up on screen for everyone to see, and then it's the extra guys. Myers and Liljegren are on the 7-8, and then Hawkenpaw as the 9, who was placed on LTIR. I imagine at this point it's just him skating and trying to recover in any way possible and trying to get back into some type of shape to get back on the ice. But those are the guys on the outside looking in. I did like the way Myers played. I think the other thing here is not just how they play on the ice, but the degree of trust that Craig Berube is going to have in them. Does he trust them? Do they play the style of hockey he wants them to play? I don't think Timothy Liljegren has really fit that mold so far, and you've kind of seen that when it comes to the depth and how he's placed other people ahead of him. Myers is getting that last game, game 6, and Timothy Liljegren's going on the road. Now, mind you, there's a veteran minimum that you have to have certain amount of guys play in these preseason games, but regardless, it's Timothy Liljegren going out there to play with what is essentially an AHL lineup in Detroit, excuse me, on Thursday night. And it's Myers who's getting the shot in the final game on Saturday at home in Toronto. You could see that ladder being pushed down, but yeah, it's very nitpicky. It's very Toronto of me to be kind of looking and being like, what the hell is going on with the 6D man? Like, what do we do in this spot? I would agree with you. You look around, it's not like every single lineup from 1 to 6 in the D is perfect. One of the questions here, Rosie, that we're getting a lot is about Bobby McMahon. A lot of people in the chat are asking, where's McMahon? Why are other people getting his ice time? As Vic had put up on the screen there, McMahon not in this projected lineup here at all right now. Lorentz taking a spot, Robertson taking a spot, Pacioretty taking a spot, Holmberg grabbing a spot. Those are guys pushing him out. Is this kind of a surprise to you, given where we thought McMahon might be going into camp and kind of the way that he might fit into a system under a guy like Craig Berube? Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, you just rattled off all the names of people that, there's a lot of competition for, one spot, and you have guys kind of step up and shine a little bit. Well, what's the reason that you're going to bump them out? I like Bobby McMahon. I think that you're going to look back at that training camp roster, in 3 months time, it could look completely different. Again, I'm sure he's disappointed that he doesn't have a spot right now, but he's going to have to be patient. Again, the peaks and the valleys of this game and of a season and of your career, you could just think you're a million miles away. You can just count the depth chart and be like, what am I doing here? Like, I might as well go home. How am I supposed to? And then boom, boom, two little things happen. You get your shot. It goes well. All of a sudden, you're like, that happened fast. So he's got to be patient. He's got to wait. This thing's not done, but there is a lot of bodies. There's a lot of competition. You got Pacioretty come in. He made a splash game 1. He's got the namesake kind of thing. Like, he's well known. He's done things. He's kind of above you, right? Like, it is what it is. And Robertson went off and he's doing his job. We talked about it last show. Like, how on earth is he not on the team? You have a camp for a reason and say, show me something. Show me who's ready. Show me who's hungry. Show me who put in the work this summer. Show me who's taking this seriously, who's taken a step this year, who's ready to like elevate their game. Boom, boom, boom. The guy comes out just firing. He didn't just get a couple backdoor lucky tap-ins and it looks good on the score sheet. He's working his nuts off. He's banging, he's back checking, he's killing penalties, blocking shots, he's scoring goals. Like, are you kidding me? People, like, what else? Why do you have camp? Why does this even take place? To give guys an opportunity to do that so that they're on the roster. You just won yourself a job in the NHL, sir. Doesn't mean you're going to play 10 years. Doesn't mean that you're irreplaceable for the rest of the season. It just means, yeah, that's what we wanted. Now you're there. Now continue doing it. Show us what you have. And I mean, you could go become whatever you're able to turn yourself into. You look at guys that, elevate their game at a certain point in their season and become stars, and you look back and say, remember that year when he kind of like broke out? Anyone's capable of doing that. And if you don't put stock into guys' performances in preseason and in the early runnings of the season, then why do you even have them? The guy earned a spot and he's there. And unfortunately for the guys that we're talking about, that might bump guys down and bump guys out, and they're going to be watching from the press box, and they might have to go through waivers. But it's a long season. Those guys got to remain patient. Like Bobby McMahon, I think will play games for the Leafs this year. I just don't know when and how, and it's not going to happen on opening night.
I think he will be in this lineup at some point as well. I do feel also like there's going to be some moves to come, some trades to come,
Yeah.
maybe some guys who are making a couple $1 million who are going to be slotted into your bottom 6 or on the outside looking in, who might just be kind of some expendable pieces. I mean, it's not like it's we can just flip these guys around anywhere willy-nilly, like you've kind of discussed with the Liljegren stuff. It's not like every other team in the league is going to be chomping at the bit to get them, but there might be some opportunities to open up a roster spot or some cap space because, like you said, Grabenkin looked like a guy who looked good in camp and showed out, and Berube took notice of, teammates took notice of, like these guys come in, they have good camp, they make a name for themselves. They might be at the top of the list in the Marlies, and it might not take an injury. for them to push their way up. Maybe that kid goes down in the minors and he dominates. He's a man amongst boys. And you kind of look and go, well, shit, that guy can't play there anymore. He's got to be in the NHL. Some of that stuff I feel like might come. I do feel like Bobby McMahon will be back in this lineup as well. But obviously, doesn't feel like it's going to be opening night, as you mentioned. Do you follow what's been going on with some of these former Maple Leafs at all on Twitter here, Rosie?
No, what's going on?
You notice a couple guys who've been placed on waivers recently. Maybe one Justin Hall in Detroit
Oh
on
yeah.
waivers. Pierre
Yes.
Engvall, 6
Ooh,
years,
baby.
$18 million remaining on his deal with the Islanders, placed on waivers.
That's a head scratcher, man. I mean, he was
Oof.
here. He's kind of one of those like what? Yeah, you're like, yeah, you're good at hockey, but you're just not really good at anything in particular, right?
Yeah.
Usually guys have the reason they're in the league, and he's pretty darn good at everything, but he's not great at anything. And to give him that contract, we were like, my goodness. And it's nice for a change to think that people always leave the Leafs and then just go blossom and turn into players and bite us in the ass. And now it's starting to be like, no, there's a reason we got rid of those guys. And there's a handful of players that were here that they moved on from. And you can call them Dubas signings or whatever you want. People go down that hole of arguing over what the problem was. But yeah, there's some guys in some pretty interesting situations right now.
I know, and also, it's funny about the one as, how many times we get shit here where it's like, "Oh, a Dubas signing, stupid signing, like, we shoulda never let Lou go, like, tough, hard-nosed players." Like, yeah, okay, sure, like, he built the team a certain way. Who do you think signed him in New York? Like, who's the GM who signs Pierre Engvall in New York? It's Lou Lamoriello. He's the GM. Like, he's the guy who signed that
I
contract.
know.
Some of these are just funny. It's like these guys make mistakes, man. Who signed Justin Hall? Stevie Y. This guy was like praised as one of, if not the best general managers in hockey. Did an incredible job in Tampa Bay. Incredible. He's the one who signed Justin Hall. And it's like not a knock against him. It's like, dude, sometimes you just swing and miss. It happens. There's whiffs.
That halt, like, it just brings me back
Well,
to
that was shocking.
year 1 of this show, like, the way they used him, like, that was kind of those are some dog days of the Leafs where, like, why is he like, it's crucial. He's been having a horrendous game. It's a crucial turning point of the game, and it's, you gotta lead with your best, and he's just double shifting out there and getting roasted and making inexplicable turnovers, and they just keep going to him. It was unbelievable. I felt like I was in the twilight zone sometimes with him, but it's nice to see the Leafs get the right end of moving on from guys for a change because they have been bitten in the ass a fair amount of times in the past.
Yeah, that was I'm not gonna lie, that was like a vindicating one though. Seeing Hall get placed on waivers, the amount of times after the Leafs didn't sign him, the Red Wings did, I would get people who would come into my chats in the post games and be like, "Can't believe we lost a guy like that. Like, what such a Leafs move to let him go." And then now he's on waivers. Now he's not even in an NHL lineup. So it's just like, well, sometimes I'm right. Maybe like I'll give myself the pat on the back for those ones. Every now and then, Rosie, I don't say something incredibly stupid.
Well, when you go back to those days, and then we're talking about our decor right now, I mean, I'm in a lot better place right now than we were back then. I think you had four huge holes back then. Now we have like
Yeah.
one, maybe two. We'll see how certain guys do. But I mean, the potential for this back end to be the best back end the Leafs have had in a long time, I think, is right there for the taking.
Before we kind of wrap things up here and get to our final bet, best bet stuff section, I just want to talk about this quickly because it kind of happened while we were on air on Friday. If people haven't already, this is one thing I love about the NHL, always have loved growing up as a kid, is watching the behind the scenes footage. That new Amazon Prime doc, Face Off, first episode featuring Pasternak and Nylander. But Rosie, we found out during the episode that both of us were featured in it. First of all, that was pretty cool to find out. But just kind of wondering your overall impressions, takeaways. I saw you put out a tweet, I think it was last night, 2 nights ago, about Nylander and your thoughts about that, watching him in that documentary and the situation that unfolded.
Yeah, first of all, those docs are unbelievable. I love the inside access. I think, for kids and fans to be able to see. I mean, I always compare everything to the 24/7, the HBO ones that I just thought were unbelievable. Like they really did it right. And I don't know if the players really would sign up for that again, like the access that they gave those cameras and microphones. And you gotta know that when that's going on, you're trying to do your business in the locker room, in the gym, on the bus, in the hotel, pregame meal, and they got people like carrying cords and whipping cords around and circling your table with the big fat camera, and it's freaking weird and it's distracting. But for whatever reason, that one, they really got the guys to just forget about it and gave some of the greatest content in behind the scenes hockey that I've ever seen. And I've seen the first episode of that one. It's pretty neat. It's funny to hear our voices on there. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that. I didn't know that went down with our companies and whatnot. But I was looking at the Nylander thing. I just go back to that. You're a game 7 against Boston. I mean, you're right there. You can go and finally, exercise some demons and knock them out of the playoffs. And we lose Nylander for the first couple of games, and like no one knows why. And then you find out, like, I know that migraines, well, first of all, concussions and brains aren't anything to mess around with, but migraines, to my knowledge, are you know, tormentingly awful, where you're laying in a dark room. You cannot look at your phone. You cannot watch a TV. You're
Yeah.
not yelling or cheering or doing anything like that. So, I mean, it was just tough for me to remember what that was like to have this like the timing of it. Like, are you kidding me? We don't have Willie, and other things happened during that series too that were just head scratchers. And then you kind of see Willie jumping up and fist and pumping for the boys and stuff. And it's like, I don't know. And they say his peripheral got taken away, and maybe there's concussion like symptoms. Well, what was it? Was it a migraine, or did you have a concussion? I don't know. And the comments were heavy and long and different, different opinions on it. But it just brought me back to that place going, how the hell can Willie possibly not go tonight out of the absolute blue? Happens to be game 1 of the playoffs for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then to get brought back to that with that documentary, and to see him not like laying there in crippling pain from a migraine was a bit of a head scratcher for me. But again, I don't want to dig up old dirt. I'm excited for the
Yeah.
future, but it was hard to let it go and be like, I have to tweet something and see what people think. A lot of support for Willie and for, hey, you don't mess around with concussions, even though I don't really attribute the two to being the same.
Yeah.
Whatever, I'm gonna move on. But it was hard to see, and brought me back to that series where there was Matthews is out, and Nylander's out, and Wool's out, and it was just unbelievably Leafy bad luck. And I hope that this year, more than anything, that type of shit is left behind us.
Yeah, I didn't mean to like dig up old stuff, but I thought it was relevant. I saw one. What I wasn't really gonna dig too much into it when I saw your tweet go out. I was like, all right, well, we got to address this. You gotta say this on the show and at least explain what you're talking about there. I know I do agree, Willie. I'm a huge Nylander fan, actually, especially
Yeah.
over the last couple of seasons, the way he's developed. Um, I don't want these guys to be hurt, but knowing what had happened, I was like kind of the same position as you, just sitting there hoping that we were gonna see him, like, writhing in pain almost, you know what I mean? Like, to, like, justify what had happened. Like, obviously, I'm not trying to diminish what he was going through, but, yeah, when they turn the camera and he's sitting there, like, standing, yelling, mic'd up, I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, put this guy in the dark room, get the lights off, and he's sitting there wearing sunglasses watching the game, if anything, but, yeah, it was I was like, "Ah, come on, like, this guy does not this is gonna be something that people are gonna bring up later on." Nah.
And whatever. And I mean, I just don't see the guy missing those games for a soft, weak reason, a flippant reason. It's not
Yeah.
possible, I don't think. But it's kind of a bad look. Like, it's
I know,
kind
I
of
know.
a bad look. I'm
It
sorry.
just
And I
doesn't
love Willie.
translate right. Like, it just doesn't translate well
Not
through the
really. Like,
camera.
fuck, buddy. You're telling me you can't be like, the lights are all on you and you're watching the TV and laying on your stomach watching the thing, and yeah, fucking Sally goals and shit. And you're supposed to have this
I know.
crippling, like, I've had headaches and head issues and whatever, but not like, I haven't had that. Like, when you say the word migraine, people who have had them are like, it's game over. Like, it's
Yeah.
game over. You can't talk to anyone. You can't hear sounds. You can't see light. It hurts to think. It hurts to roll over and change positions. Like, it's one of the worst things in the world, to my knowledge. And it just was kind of a tough look, because that's like the reason a normal person would miss work. And now
Mhm.
Willie, who I like Willie a lot. I'm a big fan. I'm looking forward to watching him this year, and I'm a fan of Willie Nylander. But it just, to me, it was kind of a rough look for, you know the position the Maple Leafs are in, what they go through, what they've gone through for 60 years, and what happened last year in the playoffs. And then to watch that now, it was kind of like, I mean, I was tweaking a little bit, but again, moving on, looking at the future, focusing on that, being positive. I couldn't let it slide. I was just like, does anyone else feel like this is fucked? But whatever, let's move on.
All right. Let's get to our final segment and wrap this thing up here, Rosie. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I've got a best bet for you. I told you before the show, I told you and Vic, and I didn't want to tell either of you guys because I wanted to surprise you with it. And I'm interested to see where people in the chat go with this one as well. I'm going to be buying low on a guy in market here. If you go over to Bet365, you go to the NHL section and you go to the futures, you're going to find in the regular season awards area, to win the Art Ross trophy, Mitch Marner plus 9,000. Mitch Marner, Art Ross plus 9,000. The reason for this, Rosie, is simply it's a contract year. He is a guy who, myself included, gives significant amount of criticism for labeling himself as a 100-point guy for a guy who's never scored 100 points. And I know I stirred some shit up the other day by saying, he's not 100 points. He got 99. People were really, really upset with me over that one, but it's not 100 points. Is 99 100? And last time I checked, no. I think he's going to be really fired up to pass that and break that. The other thing is just some of the simple things I look at. Matthew Nice took steps. Yeah, Matthew Nice is going to get more points. It's also going to help that line. Austin Matthews, I don't see him taking a step back. I've talked about it on the show. I've talked about it on other shows. I don't care where it is. I think Austin Matthews is a guy who could put up 120 points this year. I feel like he's going to take a step. All these things we're talking about, you know what it means? The third guy on that line is also going to get more points. Contract year. Guess who did it last year and put up an insane amount of points? William Nylander. You're going to say that Mitch Marner in this year, with all this pressure, all this spotlight on him, all these people looking at him, isn't going to be able to do that. This is one where I'm just like looking and being like, to score the most points in the NHL and finally have that breakthrough season, it just feels like it's the most opportune time for him to do so in his career. And also, just even from a, like, last thing I'd say on this, even just from an odds perspective as well, look at the other guys in that range. You think that a guy like Panarin and Pasternak have such a significantly higher chance of scoring way more points than him, realistically, right? I don't think that the gap is that big on their potential point production. So plus 9,000, Art Ross, Mitch Marner. It's gross to say in a contract year as Leafs fans, but that's kind of the way I'd be looking.
I mean, just the plus 9,000 says it. If there's even a hope in hell of this guy having a chance at that number's ridiculous. And he is, a premier player in the league as far as putting up points and whatnot. I think his shortcomings are elsewhere, but yeah, he's absolutely capable, and I think he probably will. And that leads me to ask, so obviously if he's going to do something like that, they're not losing him for nothing or unloading him at the deadline. They're going to re-sign him. What is that number going to be if he's on an Art Ross, potential campaign here this year? Lots of money.
I know. And did you see what Vic said to us? We're going to need to hit that bet in order to pay him. Yeah. Yes, we are.
MLS,
I know.
Mash that.
It's gross, Rosie. It's gross, but it's just like that. This feels like the year that he breaks out and goes crazy. And if he doesn't win it, I feel like he's at least going to be close. And it's like plus 9,000, like to be in the top group of players producing points this year, it feels like this would be the year. And then he's going to say, hey, give me that money.
Yeah. And I mean, good. I think it's going to depend on what Austin Matthews does this year. Is he like, can you elevate your game from last year? Like, everything was going in. He was so hot. It was ridiculous. Is that his ceiling or is that his normal? Like, how good is this guy? And Does he have, I mean, for all reasons, you would think that he's got, this season on his sights to do something. I think that if they can get off to a good start under Berube and stop with those, those leafy losses and those, can't find a goddamn heartbeat sometimes, and just nothing goes right for them, and these weird injuries and sicknesses and illnesses and these bad breaks in the playoffs, like, is that finally going to go away? And will Austin Matthews continue? I think it's going to depend on what Mitch does. I think a lot will have to do with how Matthews does. And if he elevates his season again, I mean, everybody is going to be rewarded in lots of ways, especially on that line. So we'll see how it goes. But I mean, we're talking about good problems to have right now. Can you imagine being in some rebuild or some garbage situation? Like, this is a good time to be covering the Leafs, man. And there's reason to be positive and be excited.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just trying to capitalize on this one thing that could burn.
I'm going to jump on that
next July. Yeah,
I'll play that for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I've been looking. No NHL games here tonight. There was supposed to be one with the Tampa Bay Lightning, Nashville Predators, postponed, obviously, due to weather conditions down there. Obviously, we're hoping for the best for them. Florida Panthers not doing their Cup parade either, so no hockey. We will be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Myself, Rosie, you're back here again tomorrow too, right?
I should be.
Perfect. Nick, tanning, drinking. What a life that guy lives.
I don't know what dirt he's got on the powers that be in this company, but it's shocking.
Anyways, he'll be back on Wednesday, 11 a.m. Rosie and I back here tomorrow. The Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to subscribe on your way out. Like the stream if you haven't already. Thank you guys for following us over from the old link. Apologies for that. Hopefully tomorrow, smooth 60 minutes. We get in, no mic issues off the top, no dropping out. We get it done. But thanks to everyone who tuned in here today. Thanks to everyone who followed us over. Rosie, appreciate it as always. Thanks for having me on here. And producer Vic, appreciate the work you do behind the scenes. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Go Leafs, go.
Yeah, buddy.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.